Preparing to be a caregiver. Boy, I don't think any of us came into this world or into this life anticipating or hoping that we would be a caregiver. And we certainly did not come into this world prepared to be a caregiver, right? I know I certainly wasn't. I had a lot to learn. And one thing I did learn is that there are some definite skills and traits that are necessary to be an effective caregiver. So let's talk about those. What's the first one? Patience. I think this is the biggest one for sure. And it certainly wasn't an easy one for me to cultivate. I wasn't the most patient person at the time, but I will tell you, I have become a much more patient person as a result of caring for my mom with dementia. Now, patience also builds and breeds self-confidence. So it is a really great skill and trait to have. And one that if you're not good at, definitely should try and build that one up. Next is empathy. So this is different than sympathy. So we want to be able to get into the shoes and the head of our loved one, right? Understanding how they're feeling and how they're understanding things on a day-to-day basis. Now, this is different than sympathy where we don't want to feel sorry for them, right? We just want to put ourselves in their shoes and understand where they are at any given moment. The next thing is compassion. This is a big one. And I don't mean just compassion for your loved one, but also compassion for yourself. Having that self-love and that forgiveness for yourself through this journey is vitally important to your well-being. And we need to be flexible, right? Things change like the wind direction when it comes to dementia, for sure. So we need to be able to bob and weave and come up with creative solutions on any given moment's notice, essentially. And again, being flexible is not something that we're all good at. And one of those things we might need to kind of tap into and strengthen as we go through this process. So trustworthiness, very important to our loved ones. We want to start building that foundation early on because eventually they're going to see us as their safety blanket or their safety net, and building that foundation and building that rapport in the beginning will help in the long run. Even if you didn't have the best relationship before dementia, still build this foundation of trust because that's going to be critically important on how your loved one sees you in the future. Creativity. So this goes with flexibility that I said earlier. We need to be able to come up with creative solutions for different situations and different reactions and different things that come to us during the day and during the month of this journey of dementia. We also need to be able to be creative in coming up with engaging activities for our loved ones. So thinking outside of the box is really relevant to this journey because sometimes we need to come up with ideas that we didn't even know we could come up with, right? And digging through our garage and digging through our house and coming up with ideas that would make our loved one happy and reduce their agitation and anxiety as a result. And we've got to have humor. If we can't laugh at some of the things that go on during this whole process, we'll go insane. Now, I've got a good story about humor. My mom, when we had her, when she was in the residential facility, she wasn't there very long before she passed away, but I did go visit her and she was there during the holidays. I went to a brunch that they were hosting and I showed up and I'm like, "Hey, Mom," sat down next to her, like, "How you doing? I'm so glad to see you." And she looked at me with this perplexed look and she's like, who are you supposed to be today?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm Kim, I'm your daughter. And, I'm so happy to see you and excited to have breakfast with you." And she looks at me again and she says, "Yeah, you kind of look like my daughter, but she's much prettier." Gotta laugh at that. Anyway, it's clearly something I never forgot. And might I say, I had looked better on other days, but I didn't look that bad. I'm just saying. Anyway, so we've got to find some humor in some of these things that come up. It will definitely make this a lot easier. And we need to have the ability to let things roll off your back, just like with what I talked about with the humor thing. Sometimes things are said or done that we may innately take offense to, or just the extreme frustration of certain things or even little things. And we just need to let it roll off our back. And oftentimes we need to ask ourselves, is this really a problem? Like, for example, if your loved one puts on two shirts or puts a shirt on backwards or puts on mismatched socks, is it really a problem? No, it's not. Get on with your day and just let it roll, right? Unless, of course, if your loved one has too many layers of clothing on and they're sweating to death, and of course you want to alleviate and relieve them of that problem and situation. So one of the big things when we step up to the table as a caregiver is we've got to get our head in the game. And the first thing we want to figure out and deal with is denial, right? So we need to, right off the bat, understand that this is a progressive disease and that bad things are most likely going to happen. And we want to be ahead of the game in the preparation for this. So getting a game plan rolling early, like for example, a home safety plan, getting your finances in order, getting a med schedule set up will alleviate any mishaps potentially in the future. So there won't be the potential of taking the wrong meds, or maybe you will alleviate the potential of a stove being turned on, creating a fire hazard, things like that. So again, this is a progressive disease. Your loved one, unfortunately, is not going to get any better until they find other medications, and we need to be prepared for this. So get rid of the denial. The second thing is you have to secure your own oxygen mask first. I cannot reiterate this enough. As a caregiver, you have to be in tip-top shape to take on all of the things that you need to accomplish in a day, a month, or the lifetime of this journey. So if you don't take care of yourself mentally and physically, you are not going to be any good to your loved one. So not taking care of yourself mentally and physically is not in the cards. It's not an option. You must find ways to take care of yourself and keep your doctor's appointments. It's really, really vitally important. And we will discuss this in depth in caregiver wellness and give you some tools to actually easily do this, because I get it. Sometimes we don't have time and sometimes we're too exhausted to take care of ourselves. Completely makes sense and completely normal. But there are ways to do it that don't require a lot of time and effort. The next thing we want to do is we want to align your network. So start reaching out to people in your community, maybe your neighbors, your family members, church members, perhaps people you've met at a support group, and just make a list of those people that might be able to help you. Also in Caregiver Wellness, we'll actually map out a help plan for you with your list of people. So you start doing that now. That will be helpful when we move to that exercise in that module. You can't do this alone. It will break you. You need to have a support system in place, both for tasks and also just emotional support. You need both. So create that list. Really, really important. And the last thing is to build your mindset skills. Now, I already started talking about this earlier on in the presentation, the things that we need to, the skills that are necessary to be an effective caregiver. And like most of us are not good at all of these. We may be good at one or two, like the compassion or the forgiveness or the patience, but we're not good at all of them. So we need to build our skill set, get more things into our toolbox to help us deal with this. And it certainly is pushing us out of our comfort zone. I get it, because I certainly did not have all of these qualities when I started down this journey, but I certainly cultivated and strengthened several of these, and it helped me out tremendously. So to help you with this, I've created the Mindset Challenge. So I've listed those mindset skills and traits on the top there. And what I want you to do is pick one of these. Now, this will be an 8-hour challenge or a 24-hour challenge, however you want to do it, whatever works best for you. You pick one, so say it is compassion, and you say, to me, compassion means blah, and you put it in there. And then I want you to fill out the 4 boxes underneath before you start this challenge as well. So it is important for me to practice compassion because, and list out a few things there. Things I can do to show compassion, list 2 or 3 or 4 things there that you can do during that 8-hour, 24-hour period to show compassion. And ways I can remind myself to show compassion or complete the challenge. So whether that's Post-it notes around the house or setting calendar reminders in your phone, like 8 a.m., I'm going to show compassion this way. Noon, like lunchtime, I'm going to show compassion this way. When we do X, I'm going to show compassion. And then the last box is a nice one because you get to reward yourself when you finish this challenge. So once you go through all of this and you've accomplished this, your 8 hours or 24 hours, reward yourself. Do something nice for yourself. You deserve it. This is not easy. Like I said, this is getting out of our comfort zone, but really important to do. And so whether that's a bath or an ice cream cone or going for a walk or downloading a new book, do something that makes you happy and brings you joy. Now, during that 8-hour period or 24-hour period, While you're actually going through this in the morning, I want you to write down 2 things that you did that showed compassion. Midday, same thing, and then evening in bed. And I would actually hang on to this piece, and I'd have it maybe taped up on your refrigerator or somewhere you can easily see it and access it, because this is a great reminder to you of how you actually showed compassion. One of the traits that you might need help with, if you are continually seeing this and looking at it, it will start to be ingrained in your mind and your brain, and you will actually snap into this compassion mode a little bit more easier as you practice this and see it in action in your own life and situation. So some other ways that we need to think about things when it comes to preparing to be a caregiver, there's going to be a redefinition and recasting of your relationship. And it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's your mom, dad, husband, wife, there's going to be a change in roles. And that's the first thing we want to discuss. So, for example, if your husband did all the driving or your wife did all the cooking, you are going to probably need to step into those roles and make adaptations and kind of prepare yourself for all this. So, taking cooking, for example, if you have never cooked in your life, you may want to start setting up some meal delivery services, or signing up with one of the internet meal service companies that deliver meals that you can prepare yourself, or take a cooking class, so that this isn't stressful for you and you are comfortable and you can actually do this with greater ease than you thought. So realistically, you're not only going to have to be in your role that you already are, but you're going to have to step into the role of your loved one. It's a lot, I get it, but that's how it has to be. The next thing, we need to forget about arguments and stop pushing back. So realistically, you're never going to win an argument with a person that has dementia. You just aren't. They are going to always be right, and we have to start thinking that way, that my loved one is always right. I'm in their world, I'm in their reality, and that is just how it is. They are simply just trying to make sense of things and doing the best that they can. Now remember, they're only working with a part and portion of their brain, where we hopefully are working with all of our brain power. So there's a big difference here, and there needs to be some forgiveness and some compassion with all of that, right? So I get it. We're task oriented. We want to get stuff done, but we have to stop being task oriented. And the number one thing has to be about your relationship, right? So keeping that relationship good, even if it wasn't great in the beginning, you're going to have to start bringing in some things to kind of, make that relationship good for both of you. And I'll tell you what, your loved one is 100% reacting to you all the time. So if you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you're like, I don't know, in this frantic kind of thing, your loved one's going to react to that. On the flip side, if you're happy and you're joyful and you're smiling and you're enthusiastic, they're going to react to that too. So what do you think? Which one's going to be better for the both of you? Right, the happy, joyful one. So you have the power to create the situation you want, right? You have the power. That's huge. So if you don't like the way something's going, change it. Change your attitude. Come in with happy, come in with joy. Even if you're frustrated, that's that whole creative thing, almost being an actor. You got to come in and be like, yes, I'm so frustrated I can't get your shoes on. But we're like, hey, let's put on your shoes. We have one shoe on. Great. That's terrific, right? So it's all in your power. And that is a big thing to wrap your head around for sure. It'll make your life a lot easier once you start realizing that. There's going to be a lot of give of support and love on your part, and a lot of take on theirs, and there might not be anything in return. And this was a big one with my mom. She was always my source of support as my mother, and was definitely very loving. And then when she got dementia, that changed. In fact, she was mad at me pretty much all the time, and I didn't have that support that I was used to, and certainly the love was different, but I kept reminding myself that it's the disease, not the person. And I would take steps back mentally and remember how she was with me and how supportive she was. And I'd look through all old photos and see her energy and on her face and her emotion, and remember that, right? And that would bring me back to be more supportive and loving towards her, because I know that's who she is. This is this disease that's making her this way. So again, you may feel like you're giving a lot and not getting a lot back. So find other sources of support to kind of bridge that gap for you, whether it's friends, family, or support groups. As a caregiver, oftentimes we also need to be a detective and do some investigation. For example, your loved one might lose track of the right word. So we want to help them gently and do it in a patient way. So filling in the gaps. If they're struggling with the word, and this happens a lot, we know that, wait a couple seconds and then fill in the word for them. Just don't jump in right away and give them the word. Let them kind of try and figure it out. Now, if you're seeing that they're stressed, go ahead and fill in that word for them. Another thing, they might not be able to communicate their needs. So, for example, here, they might not be able to communicate when they need to use the bathroom. So you may want to start setting up schedules for daily routine things like going to the bathroom. So if your loved one goes to the bathroom every 2 hours, here you're going to anticipate the needs of your loved one and start asking them if they need to go to the bathroom every 2 hours or taking them every 2 hours, depending on what stage they're in. So always trying to be one step ahead of your loved one's needs will make things a lot easier for you and a lot easier for your loved one, right? You'll have an established routine that makes sense. So another common thing is dementia. Loved ones with dementia can't often express that they're thirsty. So setting up, monitoring their kind of hydration levels and making sure that they have water regularly it's really important for them because they often can't communicate that. They also may mix up signals: hot, cold, hunger, pain. So for example, if your loved one is saying that they're hot and it's 20 below zero, yes, they may have some kind of temperature sensitivity issue going, but they're not communicating the right thing. So you need to take a step back and use deductive reasoning and ask yourself if this makes sense, right? So they might actually be cold. You're just going to have to step back, kind of really see where their temperature is and help them figure out where they really are with this. And they also might not be able to tell you what they're feeling with something. So for example, Ryan has this story about this woman that was a resident at the place he works, and she one day was like pointing down like towards below her waist, and she was kind of like moving her hands around like she was dancing, and she said, "There's dancing down there, there's dancing down there." And Ryan, took a step back, did a little investigation. It's like, well, she might have a urinary tract infection. And sure enough, they got her tested and she had a UTI. So things like that, just really using deductive reasoning, thinking a little bit outside the box with this as well, can be very helpful. So the other thing we want to do is make sure we get prepared financially. So if you don't have a financial planner now or an elder care attorney, you definitely want to enlist one or both of those ASAP. So you want to get all of your affairs in order with estate planning, so your powers of attorney and financial plan, so that you're prepared as things progress down the road and you're ready if your loved one needs to go into a nursing home. So that being said, Medicaid does do a 5-year look back for nursing home residency. So they look at your assets, they're going to look at your financials 5 years back. So you want to get this all in order sooner than later. You don't want to start doing this like a year before you're thinking about putting your loved one into a nursing home. And you also want to have a plan for your own finances, right? So you need to make sure that you are set for whether you need long-term care or nursing home or, just even paying the mortgage. And we will have in our long-term planning module, which is module 8, we have an elder care attorney who will be doing a whole presentation on just specifically these things, all the things that you need to prepare for and be aware of as you move through this process with dementia. So what do we do when we have a loved one that's just been diagnosed, a new diagnosis, who may be relatively healthy or perfectly healthy? Now, this was true with my mom. She had no other health issues whatsoever. In fact, she was healthy as a horse. And then suddenly she got this diagnosis of Alzheimer's at the age of 62. And I'll tell you, it was a real blow to her. Really, really tough. In fact, we need to take time to listen. That's the big thing right there. Taking time to listen to our loved ones and being just a sounding board. Sometimes we don't need to say anything, right? We just need to be there as a sounding board. This is a really tough time for them. They've just been told that they have a terminal disease, essentially, and there's a lot of emotions that are in play here. And just let them talk it out and just listen. The next thing is we want to be really sensitive to their situation. Like I just said, there's a lot of feelings and thoughts and fear and unknowns here. So being really sensitive to what they're going through and compassionate, right? Kind of pulling out that compassionate skill. And we want to reassure our loved one. We want to let them know that we are on their side, that we understand what they're going through, that we are going to be with them in this journey, that we are going to make this the best situation that it can be, that they can rely on us, that they can trust us, right? Kind of building that trustworthiness aspect of all of this. And this is a good time to start creating routine and developing fallbacks. So an idea around this is to take notes, right? Or implement a calendar. So give your loved one a little notebook or one of those handheld calendars and start writing down what the week looks like. So for the note taking, it could be like, John comes over at 4 o'clock. My appointment with X is this day. Dinner time is at 6. And calendar, same thing. My meeting, Tuesday meeting at wherever. Gym, 6 o'clock. If we start kind of building this skill for them, it will translate and be an easy go-to as the disease progresses. The other thing we want to do is start recording things. This is a fun thing to do. I did this with my mom. Once she was diagnosed, we started recording like holiday gatherings. I recorded the grandkids singing to her and things like that, and also recorded a trip that we took together when she was in the throes of dementia, which is a whole nother story and situation. But, you know, these were great things for her to look back on and bring her joy. Like she wouldn't necessarily remember, for instance, the trip where we were, what we were doing, but she remembered how it made her feel, right? And that's the thing we call emotional memory, which we will get into in the next module right after this one. So, for example, there was one video of her holding a koala bear. We were in Australia. She was petting the koala and she was just so happy and just loved this little guy to death. And whenever I showed that to her, she didn't know what the animal was. She didn't remember where we were, but she'd light up with just this happiness. It was just wonderful. And these are great things for you to look back on. And once your loved one's passed on, it's so lovely for me to pull up these videos and see her smiling face and hear her voice. And it just is, it's just wonderful. You know, she's still alive to me that way. So really great thing to start implementing now. And then also we want to start building on interests that they already have. So making, you know, activities to keep your loved one engaged. So for example, if they're into Sudoku or crosswords, building on this interest and keeping them doing them regularly so that it becomes part of that routine that we keep talking about. And it will be an easy go-to once this disease progresses. So another example is my grandmother had vascular dementia, and she was a crossword puzzle doer daily. She did it. She did crosswords ever since I can remember. So we kept her doing those, and she engaged in crosswords even when she was well into dementia. Yeah, she didn't write the right letters in the boxes on many occasions, but who cares? She enjoyed doing it, and she would just even write on the crossword all over the place, but that was fine. It was something that was her time and that made sense to her and, you know, reduced her agitation and her anxiety. So really important to do this kind of thing as well to prepare. So that's it for preparing to be a caregiver. It's a lot to take on. It's, you know, like I said, we've sometimes got to step outside of our comfort zone and develop those skills that we don't have. It will make life a lot easier, I promise you. So do that mindset challenge. Again, you could do this more than once, right? And I encourage you to do so you can kind of build on all of those and get more things into your toolbox as far as being mentally prepared for all of this. Next up is emotional memory. And like I said, this is a great module because it's going to teach you and tell you about the importance of emotional memory and how that really will impact how your days, months, years, interactions, everything is with your loved one. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next module.